Do you believe in ghosts? A perfect time to pose that question. It is actually nighttime. I don't think I've ever recorded a video at nighttime in the kitchen, but here we find ourselves. Not on purpose, but it's adding to the overall ambiance. Not that you can tell, I have like every light in the vicinity on to try to illuminate this. This is a ghost, this ghostly mug right here. But back to the question at hand, do you believe in ghosts? Kind of a loaded question. A lot of the time, whoever is asking is looking for some sort of specific answer, somebody to validate them and say, yes, I do believe, here are my experiences, or yes, I'm open to the idea. Or sometimes you might get somebody that wants to poke a little fun, just kind of stir the pot a little bit. Or maybe you're just genuinely curious and haven't made up your mind on which side of the supernatural debate that you fall under. I myself fall under the believe side of the argument for whether or not there are things beyond our comprehension in this realm, and I say that with full confidence as someone that has experienced things that I flat out cannot explain on a number of occasions. Most of my immediate family is a believer as well, my mom and dad especially. A lot of these things that we've experienced together. So I thought it would be fun to talk about some specific ghost stories of mine. And this is one of my favorite topics of conversation with anybody that's willing to listen to me about this. Ever since I was young, I have been kind of into the whole ghost story thing because specifically I went on a ghost tour in St. Augustine, Florida when I was younger that kind of set me down that path. And this was from the kid that used to be scared of like an illustration in the book of the three billy goats gruff. I went from being kind of like scared to everything to really fascinated by it. And maybe while I was a kid, I was still a little bit, skeptical and worried, but still a believer, still into it. I was the weird kid that went to school with the illustrated ghost story book that I got after that ghost tour the first time I went in St. Augustine. And that first one I went on was kind of more of a theatrical, over-the-top one. The guide was in costume. He was supposed to be a spirit. We went into some of the buildings, like the old jail down there, and we were locked in the old jail, and they played a spooky recording about that had the voices of some of the prisoners. I remember one saying he was going to stick a knife in our bellies and spin it round. That one was funny to me as a kid. I guess that's not that funny, but it was just like in this really deep southern drawl. So it was very thematic and theatrical, but I still loved it. That kind of put me in motion, like I said, of being interested in that. And it also started my love of going on ghost tours. I've been in several in many different cities. I have been fortunate enough in the last year or so to go on 4 different ghost tours now within the span of a year. And it had been a while since I'd been on one. I've been in Savannah, St. Augustine, Key West, all sorts of interesting stories from each of those that I would like to eventually cover in this video series here. On one of these ghost tours from the last year, we were down in St. Augustine. It was during the summer, just a few months back at the time of recording this, in the summer of 2021. It was an awesome tour. It was the sheriff's walk around St. Augustine. He was one of the best storytellers ever. I couldn't recommend going on the sheriff's walk around St. Augustine more. If you have a chance, go. He's a real awesome guy. We had a great time on that. And on that night, I didn't really record a lot of the tour. I just kind of wanted to be in it. I don't really like to film a lot on ghost tours. It feels kind of weird to do that. But I did, before the tour began, actually turn my camera on and ask Matt, who was with me. I asked him the question, do you believe in ghosts? And of course he said, no. Do you believe in ghosts? Mm-mm. So yes, my partner is a skeptic. That is kind of disheartening, but he's a skeptic in the way that he doesn't believe because he hasn't seen anything, but he also doesn't really want to. We've been binge watching Ghost Hunters of late because yes, I saw that all the episodes were on Discovery Plus and immediately signed up for it because some of us saw that at a very formative time in their life. That was basically like the thing I lived for watching every week whenever it would air in high school, and I have binged 4 seasons in the span of 2 weeks whenever I have a free chance. I don't have a problem. I can stop anytime I want. Anytime we're watching that show, he'll come up with whatever evidence they catch, he likes to explain it away and all of that. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, but as a believer, it does kind of, rub me the wrong way when he doesn't want to play along and enjoy the fun and the potential of all of that. We've started joking because we've been really into BuzzFeed Unsolved too, that we're like a less cool Shane and Ryan, him being the Shane, and I guess I'm the Ryan. Although I will say I am nowhere near as scared as Ryan. I believe in the way that like I don't play with malevolent stuff, but I can coexist peacefully with like harmless things. Like, I'm not that jumpy as Ryan. We love you, Ryan. We love you, Shane. Y'all aren't watching this, but we are the less cool Ryan Bergara and Shane Madej. So now Matt and I have been on a few ghost tours now. We've been on 4 together, all 4 within the last year or so he has been present for. But the one I want to talk about today, the ghost stories I am most interested in sharing with you, happened in another location in St. Augustine, the St. Augustine Lighthouse. If you have not watched the Ghost Hunters episode, the first time they go to the St. Augustine Lighthouse, watch it. It is one of the best episodes ever, some of the best evidence they have ever caught. And both times I have been on the ghost tour at the St. Augustine Lighthouse, they have referenced that and how TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society that Ghost Hunters is based on, couldn't seem to stop coming back. Even when they rebooted Ghost Hunters, it's a little bit different. Not all the same people have returned. They went back recently in the reboot of that as well. And it was at the St. Augustine Lighthouse that I had one of the biggest experiences that I have had with anything that I would categorize as paranormal. So I just recently, a week ago from filming this, went on my second ghost tour down there. I have a few clips of our experience, just kind of checking in, playing with the K2 meter that we were able to rent to pick up on any energy or any magnetic fields that might have been around there. Just a few clips to show. Again, didn't film a whole lot. I don't really, like, it's hard to like hold a camera and watch and listen and all of that. And I don't really want to like have the light on my phone affecting anybody around me. I don't have a ton of footage. I'll have some of it. And what's nice about the tour of the St. Augustine Lighthouse after dark, the Dark of the Moon ghost tour, please go on it. It's amazing. Can't recommend it enough. They allow you some free time at the end. You get to hear the history, you get to go in the lighthouse keeper's house, you get to go in the tower, and then you get some time to explore after you get the full history. So you'll see some of us checking in and just kind of milling around and being excited, and then you'll hear a little bit of me whispering, trying to make contact with stuff in some clips here. Well, I see the light. Ooh, I just got a chill. Some of us were influenced by ghost hunters at a early age. You guys afraid? Are you afraid? Are you scared?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Ooh, man, it has been a long time. I know, I have not been here in a minute. All right, let's see what happens. You don't have to hold it down, it's just on now.
I'm not holding it down.
An EMF detector. I don't know. Just thought I'd come over here and say, hey, we're out here with an EMF meter. We're gonna go down that path with it.
Trying to, don't worry about it. I just need to make sure we're all here. And it looks like that's everyone. So, welcome everyone to the Dark of the Moon Ghost. If you're in here, give us a red light.
You have to speak with whisper. My name is Carson. If you're in here, I would love to get a sign of your presence. I got an EMF meter here. You can interact with it. You can make it go up to a red for me. So you can find a really comprehensive history of the St. Augustine Lighthouse, a very storied history, but there has been tragedy. In fact, the original lighthouse is not still there. The one that is there famously now, the striped patterned one, it was not the original. That one was much closer to the water, actually, and it did unfortunately fall. Not before one of the lighthouse keepers fell off of it. And there is a BuzzFeed Unsolved about this, and the way that they talk about the obituary, and they talk about it on the tour for the lighthouse as well. Obituaries were a lot different back then, so they go through every detail of what happened to this man as he fell, plummeted from the lighthouse. It's not funny, but just like, they don't just say so-and-so passed away peacefully. It was like, no, he fell and then he hit the roof and then he bounced. So that really is a colorful story. So we've had someone tragically die falling from the lighthouse, but perhaps the most famous tragedy that happened there was when the Pitti family was in residence at the lighthouse. They had several daughters, and while they were there, there was what was essentially kind of like an old mine shaft, cart, and bucket that would go to all the way down to the water, so they could bring supplies back to the lighthouse area a little bit inland from the water, back and forth a little more easily. And when you're a kid, yeah, that's basically a fun roller coaster ride, to get in the cart, ride it all the way down, and then pull the brake. Well, unfortunately, while 2 of the Pitti daughters were in the bucket and another girl of one of the workers there was in it, the brake failed, the bucket flipped over, and brought them down under the water, and they were trapped. A worker tried to go help free them and get them out, but he was too late. And unfortunately, 3 of the little girls there died. These are supposed to be some of the most active spirits at the lighthouse. In fact, on this most recent trip, our tour guide told us that the little girls, they're very playful, they're not mean-spirited, but they will do kind of mischievous things like tying a woman's shoelace to one of the railings inside the lighthouse while she wasn't looking. So she went to go climb up a step and promptly tripped. I was saying if anybody was going to do that to me, I would not be happy. And as someone that works with kids, like, these kids better not play with me. But the little girls are there. You can still hear them, see them around. There's some of the entities there that people have the most contact with or the most experiences with. I would urge anybody out there, because I'm not the best historical storyteller, to look up a more full account of the lighthouse. But needless to say, there's a lot going on there. So now let's talk about my experiences on the Dark of the Moon ghost tour in St. Augustine. The last time that I went down there, just about a week ago, was a little more quiet. Not quite as much happened, which really irked me because I really wanted to stick it to Matt and be like, see, this exists. But again, the few little things that did, he was easily able to explain away, much to my chagrin. It seemed like a much larger group this time as well. I really want to go back. They have smaller tours that are just investigation only. And ever since I have come home from that, I already want to book another one. I want to go back down immediately because I'm dying to have the experience I had years ago happen again. But this most recent time, only a few things happened. There's actually some nature trails in and around the property as well. There's a lot of activity there. People hear voices and footsteps behind them. At one point, we were near the tower, but very close to where the trails were. And a woman piped up in the tour. She said, I just have to interrupt. I can hear footsteps. Everyone got quiet. The guide said she heard them. We all listened. There was nobody over in the nature trail area, but you could hear what did sound like footsteps. Also, I went down into the basement of the lighthouse keeper's house, where the spirit of a man named Peter, who does not like you to sit in his chair, resides. My dad and Matt sat in the chair and tried to feel Peter touching them or telling them to get up. But if you insult his chairs, he gets mad and can push you out. There's actually a video of some famous wrestler getting shoved out of the chair, which sounds pretty funny to me. But they sat in the chair. We tried to, talk, make contact. Nothing picked up on the meter. But I walked into that room first, and I thought Matt was behind me, and I swear I heard him say something in my ear. But when I turned around, I had walked faster than Matt and my parents, and I was alone in the room. Could have been the acoustics. Even I will offer an explanation. That could have been something that we could explain away. I also felt like we did climb the lighthouse. I came back down while Matt and my dad stayed at the top. I was alone on one of the landings, and I felt the sensation. It felt like somebody brushed my head. Again, nothing super over the top, nothing super conclusive happened this time, even though I was really hoping for some definitive proof. Perhaps this makes me sound crazy. You could explain all of this away. I don't blame you if you think I'm a raving lunatic now, but that's just my experience that happened this time, which was not quite as exciting as the first time I ever went on the Dark of the Moon tour at the St. Augustine Lighthouse. It had to have been about 10... Wait, how old am I? No, oh man, oh God, I'm having an age crisis here on camera. No, it was over 10 years ago, maybe 15. Oh my God, I'm so old, guys. So no, it was over 10, it was between 12 and 15 years ago that I went. I was a lot younger. I remember the excitement in the air. I remember thinking this was the most hardcore hands-on tour, because a lot of places you just stand outside and you get the story, you don't really get to poke around. But the fact that we got to go into the house, the lighthouse keeper's house at night, and the actual tower was oh my gosh, it was crazy to me. I was so excited, and we got to have free time. Now that free time, it felt like there weren't as many people milling around. This one, people were kind of opening the doors and closing them really loudly. It was hard to get anything to really happen. It seemed like it was a lot quieter group that time I went, however many years ago. But we were all standing in one of the rooms, kind of the parlor area of the lighthouse keeper's house, hearing the story. And I remembered the story of the little girls drowning from when I was a kid. I think the first time we visited it, when I was young and still in a stroller, I remember hearing something about those girls. So I had that in the back of my mind. We're all standing in this parlor room. And what they do, you have to understand that on Dark of the Moon, they split the group into two halves. One half goes into the house first, and one half goes into the tower. They don't take you to climb to the top of the tower anymore. Now they just take you kind of around that area. But at this time, X amount amount of years ago, one of the groups went inside the tower. They were not wandering around the property. They were nowhere near the house. Our group that I was in the house first. So we're hearing the story, we're hearing the history, and then this sound happens. And it takes a minute for me to register what I'm hearing. And then I realize this is someone singing. Not only is this someone singing, this is a little girl's voice. And at that moment, everybody in the room, including the guide, went completely silent, just kind of listening. Nobody said anything. And it wasn't some modern song that anybody recognized. It wasn't some nursery rhyme anybody recognized, but it was clearly some sort of old-timey song coming from what seemed like the hallway just outside of the room we were in. At this point, one of the men that was in the group, not the tour guide, but one of the other visitors, runs out down the hallway through the other rooms on that level, and then he goes out the front door and around the house. He's checking to see, like, somebody's messing with us. There's some kid wandering around singing, or somebody's playing a prank on us. He comes back in completely just like, and he goes, "There's nobody out here." And immediately we're all kind of like, oh my God. I can still hear the sound of that little girl singing to this day. And it was one of the most affirming things as far as paranormal for me. I can't explain it. Maybe that's not good enough for some people, but to me, it was one of the most like extreme incidents that I've had. And you can just feel it. I'm the type of person that just, I guess, can tell the vibes of a place. I'm pretty good at figuring out if a building or if a place is haunted. You just has that feeling. Sometimes you just know in your gut, which I've tried to explain to Matt many times and he just thinks I'm a lunatic. But I'm telling you, I sometimes you can just look at a place and you just know. On that note, I have to prove myself right on this. When we went to Charleston on a ghost tour, Matt and I, we were walking from our hotel to meet our tour guide, and there was this La Quinta hotel next to ours, and I took one look at that building and I said, "There's something wrong with that building. That building's haunted." He said, "How do you know?" Come to find out later on that tour, there was a very scary ghost and spirit in that building. I said, "Ha, I told you so." So that's what I mean. Like, you can just kind of get that gut instinctual feeling. At least I do. But hearing that little girl singing, like, has stuck with me. And it was part of the reason why I was so hyped to go back down there recently. Even though it wasn't a super hyperactive night, it was still a wonderful time. You get to hear history. You get to climb the lighthouse. You get to be in a piece of history in the nation's oldest city. And I frankly think that's awesome. Once again, it's called the Dark of the Moon Ghost Tour. If you ever get a chance to go to St. Augustine, check it out. There's a lot of great ghost tours in St. Augustine. In fact, I'll be telling some more ghost stories about St. Augustine because I've spent a lot of time there. I actually did go to college there and lived in a haunted dorm room, so I'll have to share those stories with you guys sometime. So, do you believe in the paranormal? Do you not believe in the paranormal? I guess that's a matter of personal choice. All I can say is I know what I've seen and I know what I've heard. And the St. Augustine Lighthouse is one of the most impressive instances that I can think of that I've ever had an experience in.
All right. Beautiful St. Augustine.